Hi everyone, today I will be talking about photosynthesis and cellular respiration. What is photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is a process in which plants transform light energy into chemical energy. Where does phase 1 of photosynthesis occur? It occurs in the thylakoid. Where does phase 2 begin? It begins in the stroma. Where does the plant obtain light energy? Well, it uses the pores it has in its leaves to collect light energy. Why is the breakdown of water important for photosynthesis to begin? This is important because it activates the electron transport chain to start. How is ATP produced? ATP is produced during the light-dependent process in which water is split into protons, hydrogen, and oxygen, which also produces ATP and NADPH. Why is CO2 necessary for phase 2 of photosynthesis to begin? CO2 is necessary for phase 2 to begin because it transports carbon. During the light-independent phase of photosynthesis, chloroplasts use carbon dioxide to produce energy-rich organic molecules, such as glucose. How is glucose produced at the end of phase 2? Glucose is produced at the end of phase 2 by different compounds combining, such as fixed carbon dioxide, ATP, and NADPH. Cellular respiration. Where do all of the 3 steps of cellular respiration take place? Glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm, Krebs cycle in the mitochondria, and ETC in the mitochondria membrane. Why is ATP needed for the breakdown of chemical bonds? ATP is needed for the breakdown of chemical bonds because it provides energy needed to break compounds. How is CO2 formed during cellular respiration? During aerobic cellular respiration, glucose reacts with oxygen, which forms ATP, which creates CO2 and H2O as a byproduct. How does the Krebs cycle provide the electrons needed for the ETC process? Well, the Krebs cycle gives us new compounds such as FADPH2 and NADPH, which gives us an electron. How are ATP and water produced during the electron transfer chain? A glucose molecule is broken down into CO2 and H2O. Along the way, some ATP is also made. What is the net result at each of the steps of cellular respiration? Glycolysis gives us 2 pyruvate molecules, 2 ATP, 2 NADPH, while Krebs gives us 2 ATP, 2 FADPH2, 2 NADPH2, 6 O2 molecules, while ETC gives us 32 ATPs. Conclusion. I therefore conclude that photosynthesis and cellular respiration are both amazing processes that occur multiple times daily in order for plants to produce their food, which ends up giving us oxygen. I will now be talking about the different steps of photosynthesis. First is the light-dependent reaction. This begins when light hits the enzyme photosystem 2, which helps capture light. It causes a water molecule to break into an electron, a proton, and an oxygen molecule. Then the electron will be transported through the thylakoid membrane and will go through photosystem 2 and all of the enzymes until it reaches photosystem 1. As the electron is moving through the thylakoid membrane, protons outside the thylakoid are transported inside the thylakoid space. Then more light hits photosystem 1, which causes the electron to move until it reaches outside the thylakoid, or the stroma. The electron outside then combines with NAD+ and makes NADPH. The last step of the light-dependent phase is chemiosmosis, which is the movement of protons moving down the concentration gradient. Since the protons are moving from outside the thylakoid to inside, it causes an imbalance in the concentration gradient. Because of this, the protons begin to move back outside the thylakoid through the ATP synthase. The motion of protons moving outside the thylakoid causes ADP to convert into ATP. I will now be talking about phase 2, or the light-independent step of photosynthesis. This is where ATP and NADPH is converted into glucose. We begin with carbon fixation, in which we put carbons together by taking 6 CO2 and a 5-carbon compound to create 3 PGA. Next, we use the energy from phase 1 to take 3PGA and convert it into G3P. Two of the G3P molecules leave to be made into glucose. G3P then turns into ribulose 5-phosphate, which then converts into ribulose 1,5-biphosphate, which then combines with Rubisco, which activates the cycle to begin again. I will now be talking about the different stages of cellular respiration and where they occur. The first step of cellular respiration is glycolysis, and it occurs in the cytoplasm. Next is the Krebs cycle, which occurs in the mitochondria, and last is the ETC, or the electron transfer chain, which occurs in the mitochondria membrane. The first step of cellular respiration is glycolysis. Glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm. We use glucose from previous steps and turn it into G3P. While that happens, ATP is converted into ADP. NAD plus is turned into NADH. So glucose turns into G3P, and G3P turns into pyruvate, which will be used for the Krebs cycle. We are now in the second phase of the cellular respiration process. This is called the Krebs cycle. During the Krebs cycle, pyruvate turns into acetyl-CoA by combining with CoA. Then, acetyl-CoA turns into citric acid, which then turns into a 5-carbon compound, which then turns into a 4-carbon compound, which then turns into acetyl-CoA again. During the last step of cellular respiration, which is ETC, it occurs in the mitochondria membrane, and the electron we get from NADH and FADH2 from the Krebs cycle travels through the mitochondria membrane until it produces water when it is combined with O2 and H+, similar to what we did in photosynthesis during the light-dependent phase, because it has almost the same setup, but this one is slightly different and produces way more ATP or energy than in photosynthesis. Thank you for watching my very long and complicated explanation of photosynthesis and cellular respiration. I hope this makes it a little bit clearer, and yeah, thank you for watching.